Hey, what's up everyone? This is Caleb from Cubo Gaming. I'm back with another buyer pass to give you some of my thoughts on Ghost of Tsushima to help you decide on whether it's worth buying or maybe just passing on. So this game is PS4's last major exclusive release game, so it's kind of a sending off for the console, and so obviously with that said, it has a lot of hype and definitely a lot to live up to. The game is set on Tsushima Island in the late 13th century, following the story of Jin Sakai as kind of a one-man army against the Mongol invasion, and you end up exploring the island, taking out enemy camps and freeing prisoners, which actually brings me to the first thing I want to talk about, which is the map design. The map design in the game wasn't too bad. I mean, I definitely have seen better, but I say that because the map is essentially split into north and south, with other regions within those, but basically those are the major parts of the map. The south part of the map is a lot more interesting in my opinion, and it actually flows really well. You know, just riding on my horse, I always found myself stopping to fight enemies, making a roadblock, or seeing a burning village and going in to help. The map felt easier to navigate and explore, while the north part of the map, which is unlocked a little later in the game, just seemed less interesting. You know, I did still enjoy that part of the map, it just had me constantly going back to the south portion. I do want to mention that the navigation system in the game is really unique, and you know, the way they handle it works so well. If you don't already know, basically once you set a waypoint in the map, or you have a mission to go to somewhere, the wind will start to pick up and visually show you where to go. You can also swipe on the touchpad on the PS4 controller and make the wind blow if it dies down. You know, I thought this was really cool and it actually made finding areas a lot more interesting. And obviously to go hand in hand with the map design is the graphics. I actually think these are different from other games, and the reason why I say that is because, you know, they aren't actually meant to be real to life. And what I mean by that is that the game definitely has a mythical type of aspect to it, and so the graphics have some of that too, like the constant pollen flying around and the crazy amount of leaves. You know, the colors are exaggerated and extremely saturated, but you know, it all fits so well. You know, I was really impressed with the amount of moving particles on the screen at once. The leaves can all move when you step in them, and the grass fields, every single piece of grass moves in the wind. It looks amazing, and you know, it makes it really fun to explore. Now, the graphics in the world are incredible, and you know, they give the game a really unique feel and look, but the facial expressions, I gotta say, are straight out of PS2 game. I mean, it could be that basically I hold every other game's facial expressions to the ones in Last of Us 2, but just as it stands alone, the facial expressions were just odd at times. It isn't, you know, anything game-breaking, and honestly, you get past that easily, but it's worth mentioning. And of course, a major part of this game is the combat. And I'll say this straight out, the combat in this game is really fun. I mean, basically the best part of the game, kind of fun. And you know, when hearing that you couldn't lock on to enemies in the game, I actually got kind of worried because I thought it would be a confusing mess. But you know, it really works for this game. It doesn't really feel like Dark Souls, but more freeform and lighter. You know, your character is fast and agile, and you really can, you know, try to go head on first, or you know, take your time on the enemy. The dodging and parrying mechanics felt great, and I'll be honest, the game really punishes you for missing or getting greedy. The game isn't exactly hard, but if you mistime a hit, or you go for one too many attacks, then you're probably gonna die pretty fast. Which, you know, got a little rage out of me, but at the same time, I liked it because, you know, it didn't hold your hand the whole game. Another part of the combat that I really liked is that you have a really great skill tree that you can upgrade, you know, as well as a lot of secondary throwables that actually saved my life more than I can remember. There are these throwing star type things that would break an enemy or enemy's defense bar so you can kill them easily, or sticky bombs that would take down the bigger guys. There also are some smoke bombs that would allow you to either get away, or you can actually hide in the smoke and get an easy takedown on the enemy. These throwables were so helpful and just added to the combat. You also had the stances, which you slowly unlocked by killing leaders around the map. So basically you have 4 stances. The first is Stone Stance. This helps breaking down the defense bar of enemies with swords. Then you have the Water Stance, which is good to use against enemies with shields. The Wind Stance, which is good for enemies with spears, and finally the Moon Stance, which is good against the large brute enemies. I was constantly switching between these in combat, and it made the combat so much more interesting and involving. Now, there is stealth in the game, and you know, I've heard a lot of people say that the stealth was really bad, but you know, I actually think it added to the game. Now, yeah, don't come into this game thinking that it's going to be super in-depth and complicated stealth mechanic. And it is definitely on the easy side of things, but I think the game would be lesser without it. Basically what I'm saying is the stealth is definitely easy and at times too easy, but I think that the game benefits from having this than rather it being not in the game. It adds another option, and sometimes I actually opted to use stealth because there were too many enemies. And I also like how, you see the conflict in Jin for using stealth. Using stealth and killing enemies not face to face is dishonorable for a samurai. But Jin is basically a one-man army, so, he kind of needs to use this to his benefit. And, this obviously brings me to the story part of the game.
Let's find your brother.
I say this a lot on the podcast and, just in general, that the main factor in a game that will make me recommend it is the story content. I highly value a good story, and if the game has one, then I really want to take something away from that. Now, Ghost of Tsushima has a decent story. The story is there basically to be a catalyst for you to experience the combat and what makes the game great. I didn't think too highly of the story, honestly, and not that it was a bad or upsetting story, but just because it was kind of just there to be there. Jin was interesting, but everyone else just kind of blurred together, and no one really standed out aside from Jin. And I'll say this again, the story isn't horrible, and it actually will probably work for the majority of people, but for me, I just value a good story so high that this one was basically there just to be there. The premise was interesting, and I think that's the best part of the story, is the really unique setting and that it's constant throughout. But as for the supporting characters and character building, it didn't really interest me too much. And this brings me to my final thoughts and if I think the game is worth buying or passing on. As of the time I'm recording this video, the game is $60. Here's my opinion. For me, I actually think I could have waited for a sale on this one and, played it being happy with the combat, world, graphics, and setting. If you're looking for a game with a great story, then, you won't really find it here, but if you want an incredible combat experience that never gets old and a big open world to conquer and explore as a samurai, then, I think this game is for you. Obviously, it's still $60, but I would say that aside from the 20 or so hours of main story, the game has a ton of content. I'd say that this is just what the PS4 needed as a send-off before the new console. And I think that's going to be it for this one. If you liked the video, then be sure to check out some of our other videos. A like and subscribe is always appreciated, and don't forget to check out our Discord server and gaming podcast link below.